In this video, I'm going to discuss some of the key aspects of the Cheshire Police investigation that was codenamed Operation Hummingbird with Senior Coroner's Officer Stephanie Davies. This is particularly important and valuable because Stephanie was working at Cheshire Police during the period that they'd begun to investigate the Countess of Chester Hospital. Now, we say that they didn't investigate the Countess of Chester Hospital whatsoever, they just investigated Lucy Letby. They still claim otherwise, but frankly, there is at this point in time no available evidence to indicate otherwise, and they've certainly been resistant when it comes to releasing any of the relevant documents that would disprove our belief. So, in this discussion with Stephanie, we discussed some of the finer and most important points related to Operation Hummingbird, which she had been involved with by doing a review of some of the cases just days before the police in Cheshire made the decision to launch a full investigation.
So I'm going to ask you now, we're going to discuss now Operation Hummingbird. So I will share my screen at this
Okay.
point so you can see. So we're going to go through what happened in May. So we've already kind of discussed this previously, but I wanted to go through these specific things. So this is on the 5th of May, 2017. So you've already looked at the cases at this point. You've looked at the cases on the 4th of May, I believe.
Yeah, so the 5th was the Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I attended the my second goal group meeting that Friday morning. So, but I think this one was there. I think the police might have had another meeting in the afternoon. I did not attend that.
Right. Okay. So at this meeting, they say, as part of the review, staffing was looked at. There was a notable high statistical relationship between a member of the nursing staff and babies deteriorating in the unit. There is no evidence other than coincidence. So then we move on to this meeting. So this is on the 12th of May, 2017. This is held in meeting room 5, Cheshire Constabulary. There's various discussion, and they say at this stage, Council Chester exhausted all lines possible. There is nothing that could potentially be evidence for criminal investigation. The concerns raised by the consultants have been raised previously. There is nothing they're aware of that they would consider or believe that potential criminal offences may have been committed. So you also attend a gold group meeting around this time and give evidence on the infants that you've examined.
No, not on Friday the 12th. I didn't.
Sorry?
No, I did not attend any meeting on Friday the 12th.
No, sorry, around
No.
this time, not on this
Yeah.
day.
No, so the last meeting I attended was the week before.
Yeah.
For the 5th. Yeah.
And then there's this letter from Ian Harvey to Margaret Kitching. We had a further. This is his recollection of the meeting that we've just discussed on the 12th. We had a further meeting with ACC Martland, Nigel Wenham. So I know Stephanie knows all these people. An SIO, Detective Inspector Hughes this morning in Winsford, and the police legal advisor. They are minded not to hold an investigation. Firstly, they don't feel that there is evidence of criminal activity. And secondly, they are mindful of the effects on families. However, our paediatrician sent a document to them that was a listing of their concerns, which was a very prejudiced view, effectively pointing the finger at one nurse. So let's remember that expression for the document. The police noted that it hadn't been forwarded to us also and requested that they do so. So they sent this to the police. They didn't even send it to the consultants and executives rather from the hospital. It does not contain anything new that multiple people and agencies haven't heard, despite the paediatrician's assertion that they haven't been listened to. So that's on the 12th of May. And then on the 15th, Dr. Jairam and Dr. Brewery turn up at the police station, and as we've just discussed here in this thing, very prejudiced view, essentially pointing the finger at one nurse, they do exactly that in this discussion that I've been over on the channel. I know Stephanie's seen. So with all that being said, I've got a few questions for you regarding this thing.
Okay.
So the first thing is, this is a pretty banal question, but I just want to make sure that you agree. Do you think it's fair to reasonably conclude from this that the police had no intention of investigating prior to the meeting with Brewery and Jairam?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I know because when I did my review, I don't think it had that much impact at the time. And the only reason I know my review played a role was because of what Paul Hughes told me. But when he told me that, that was after his meeting with the consultant. So everything changed at that meeting. Before then, there was no evidence. They weren't going to investigate.
Yes.
And it's everything changed in that meeting. It's all about that meeting. And I don't know, maybe they reflected on my review at that point and said, oh, yeah, the senior coroner's officer has also said there's gaps. Maybe we need to look at this. Perhaps. I don't know. But yeah, that makes sense to me. It's all about that meeting.
Yeah. So the second question I'd like to ask you is, from the outset, it seems that Cheshire Police allowed their investigation to be led by Lucy's principal accusers, rather than treat these consultants as potential suspects, or at the very least as witnesses. You know, I know that a lot of people have said to me they should have been investigating the whole background to these two in particular. So do you think that's a fair statement, and can you share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I do think it's a fair statement. And I think the police really, they know all about motive. And did anyone ask the question, do these principal accusers, do they have a motive to pick on this person, this nurse? And yes, they did, because of the recent grievance procedure that was upheld, and they had to apologise. There's motive there. Why didn't the police, or maybe the police did consider that? I don't know. But there should be records where they've, documented, we've considered this as a theory, but we've managed to eliminate it or rule it out. Did they do that? And I suspect not, because they let these witnesses, so-called witnesses, potential suspects who had a motive, they let them then lead the investigation, which has introduced all sorts of bias from the very outset.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you see, we obviously know now that Lucy's had this grievance upheld. And Cheshire Police were aware that not everyone in the Council of Chester agreed that Lucy was hurting babies. In fact, the majority did not think this. So it should be natural then for them to think, well, the main accusers, Lucy Letby, might not have the most pure motive, or even if they genuinely believe what they're saying, which I believe at the start they definitely did, and I'm sure they definitely did when they went to the police station.
Yeah,
They might have a very flawed perspective on what they were saying. And then in addition to that, there's the information of the grievance procedure being fully upheld against them. So, what do you think about all of that? What should they have done? I mean, surely this should have come up in the investigation, should it not?
Yeah, I mean, naturally they need to get information, so they're going to have to take the accounts of these principal accusers of Lucy Letby, and yes, it's a line of inquiry they have to follow, but they should consider, like in medicine, it's called differential diagnosis. They should consider the alternative. What if the perception of these consultants is skewed, focusing on this one individual. In actual fact, it's tunnel vision. They're not looking at the bigger picture. And unfortunately, I think the police have fallen down that same rabbit hole. They've then gone tunnel visioned because of these consultants. And it may be that they're almost in awe of these consultants. They're senior medics. They know what they're talking about. They deal with these babies, whereas we're police officers. We don't understand the medicine behind it. We don't understand medical terminology. So in a way, these people need to lead us so that we can try and follow relevant lines of inquiry. But I think they kept those lines of inquiry too narrow, without looking at the bigger picture. And this is why I think the coroner needed an active role in the investigation, because the coroner will look at the bigger picture. The coroner is inquisitorial, and the first thing would be, okay, what has caused these deaths? So not who's done them. No, you need to get past the first hurdle. Are they murders? Is there deliberate harm? What's caused these deaths? And with that, you have to consult with those paediatric pathologists and get a multidisciplinary panel of experts, including forensic pathologists and take it from there. But that didn't happen.
Hmm. So my reflection on this, and I'd be interested to get your view on this, is that when these people walk into the police station, like if anyone walks into a police station and reports a crime, but certainly a crime of this seriousness, the first question you should be asking yourself is why? Like, why are they doing this? Um, because I've seen situations where someone who has actually committed the crime has contacted the police or has been hanging around the crime scene and stuff like that. Um, and then that also begs the question, what would they have done? Let's say Lucy Letby had walked in. Oh, is it okay if I just make it? Yeah, yeah. There's been a crime at the Council of Chester. Dr. Brewery and Dr. Jeremy have been murdering babies. Would they have taken that with the same seriousness? Because they basically, as far as I can see, they basically accepted the view of the consultants completely uncritically. So that would beg the question, if someone came in and made accusations about them, who was of a lower status at the hospital, you know, being a nurse, would they have taken that as seriously? So I'd be interested
Yeah.
to know what you think about that, and also the why question. Like, surely you should be saying, why is this person here?
Yeah, I think they looked at the hierarchy in the hospital and figured that those at a higher status were almost more important, more likely to be factually correct rather than someone at a lower status. And it shouldn't be that way. But you're right, had Lucy Letby reported these doctors for harming babies, you're right. I don't think they would have listened to her. They would have just spoken to the doctors and said, "Oh yeah, it's obviously someone bitter
Hmm.
employee," which is, I think, how they've been trying to paint me. Because I guess the allegations I've made are against higher ranking police officers, and they'll just try and, say, "Well, Steph's a civilian, a lower ranking civilian. What does she know?" So
Hmm.
I absolutely agree with what you're saying. I think it's the status of those doctors, their senior positions in the hospital, the fact that they are medics, I think that has influenced the police, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Coroner having a lot more experience, the coroner and the coroner's team, such as myself, I used to speak to several doctors every single day about medical matters, about causes of deaths, and so whilst the coroner and coroner's officers are not medics, we understand medical terminology. We understand that some doctors are just not very good, and that includes consultants. We understand that. We know that there are some that are better than others. We know that there are some doctors that may not be honest, and they may, miss out information. And then it's for the coroner to then do an investigation, look further into potential problems, not just with individuals, but also with maybe the doctor that's reporting the death. Is there any weaknesses there? So I do think that that is one of the flaws in Operation Hummingbird, that they didn't have the input of the coroner, someone who is familiar, who is used to talking to doctors and used to doctors not always being truthful. And I think that's something that the police lack because they
And of
don't
course,
talk to doctors every day.
and of course they can make mistakes, as we know. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not just that. I mean, like they're not infallible. They're just people who've done the
yeah,
training and so they've got experience. I respect their ability, but no one never makes a mistake. There's no one out there that has never made a mistake.
yeah,
But we shouldn't put doctors on this pedestal. Like I know quite a lot of doctors and professors now, and they're all fantastic people, but I'm sure that they've all made mistakes. That's
yeah,
normal. I just think that we need to stop treating doctors like gods because they're not.
yeah. No,
Um,
absolutely.
so I've got a question for you about the infamous Dewi Evans. Now you've spoken at Westminster about expert witnesses and the suitability of them. So we've discussed Dewi Evans in the past. Do you have any comments on the rather questionable method of selecting Dr. Evans as the expert? And we know now as well, Stephanie, the police arrested Lucy when they'd only spoken to Dr. Evans. So all this other stuff about, oh, we had so many other experts, blah, blah, blah. We know for a fact they interviewed Lucy and they already believed Lucy was guilty. Paul Hughes said, I basically believe she was guilty then when they'd only spoken to Dr. Evans. So do you have any comments on those two matters?
Yeah. again, looking at motive, I think Dr. Evans has basically been very open about his drive for money and how he wants to keep his son in cars and his daughter in horses. But I also think for this complexity, numerous deaths of babies, it should have been a panel, multidisciplinary panel from the outset, and instead there's been one individual who happens to be on the National Crime Agency expert list who says, this is my kind of case, I can help you, sort of thing. Already he's got the pound signs in his eyes, and that's a massive walking red flag. But for whatever reason, his opinion alone seems to be enough for the police. And now I can't say the coroner would have done anything different, but it may well be that the coroner might have spotted those red flags earlier and said, actually, I think you need a few people looking at the evidence and then seeing what they independently come back with before confirming that these are definitely murders. But it just seemed, the second they had one person who happens to be on this expert list saying they're murders, great, let's now find the evidence to make it all fit. That's not good. That's not good at all. And I think it highlights, I'm sure there are plenty of experts on the National Crime Agency list that are, very good experts, and they are impartial and they don't just fight for one side and try and win a case. I'm sure there are plenty, but I think when you've got such a niche area of medicine and the deaths are arguably equivocal, so whether the natural causes or whether the systemic issues, so medical negligence, or whether it's deliberate harm by an individual or individuals, you're looking for more than one discipline in medicine. You're looking for multidisciplinary. So why they thought a retired paediatrician was suitable, I don't know. Yes, arguably they did get other experts on board, but I think that bias was introduced when they peer reviewed Harry Evans's reports. They should have got the original evidence first, said to these other experts, right, here's the original evidence, see what you think, before telling them what Harry Evans's theory was. And it just ended up that Harry Evans's theories were rubber stamped by people that he potentially already knew. So I found that really concerning. And as I said in Manchester, I'm concerned that a retired paediatrician was allowed to not only change the causes of death, but also the manner of death. That I found really concerning, which really that should be a coronial judicial decision, not one made by a retired paediatrician.
Yeah. And so another thing is, as you mentioned, he's obviously questioned this, so we should acknowledge that. But I think it's reasonable to describe what he did as inserting himself into the process. And that wouldn't usually happen, would it? You wouldn't usually, an expert wouldn't be usually be selected by him pushing himself forward, essentially.
Exactly. And it seems he read about it in the paper. I mean, surely a panel of experts should have been selected before doing the press release. I mean, I didn't even know there was going to be a press release. I mean, at 1 minute I was told that my review was one of the reasons the police decided to investigate. And then, and I think Paul Hughes was on his way to see the coroner to say there's going to be a press release, but I was never told. And then I had to, manage my team, because they were like, why weren't we told there's going to be a press release? Have we missed something in our inquiries? And I had to deal with that. And, so it just seemed the police were really quick to issue a press release before they'd actually got in place the relevant experts. And the danger of doing a press release is that you're going to attract people that are, they want to, they put themselves forward for a case, are they driven by money? Or are they driven by getting to the truth? And already that is a bit of bias. If you read about it in the paper, then you say, hang on, I'm the guy you want. And then if you're good at talking the talk, then you get selected. So I think those are probably, I don't know, someone needs to question that media strategy and, perhaps they should have put everything in place first before doing a press release, because then they attracted the likes of Darry Evans, who only wants to win for the side he's representing in effect, because he made it very clear he was on the prosecution side and he was going to win for the prosecution.
Yeah.
Expert witnesses don't do that.
No. So I think it's interesting you mentioned this hastiness. Is it fair to describe it as hasty? I think it is.
Yeah,
To go from the 14th of May, where they had no intention of investigating, then they have this meeting on the 15th of May, and as you rightly say, it's already in the Guardian on the 18th of May. At that stage, they knew nothing other than
yeah,
the paediatrician consultants had come into the police station and said, "Oh, we reckon it's Lucy's fault." And then it's
exactly.
already in the paper. I mean, that just seems, I want to choose my words carefully, but it seems I can think of stronger words, but it seems inappropriate. Let's put it that way.
I don't know why there was a rush to do a press release. I don't know whose decision that was, but I mean, obviously I've never been a senior investigating officer, but I think if it was me, I'd be like, I want to lay down the foundation first. I want to make sure
Hmm.
we're not attracting people out of the woodwork who could potentially have a bias looking at this case. So, I think the selection of experts really should have happened before the media release. And, I don't think he would have been selected, you know, had he
Was,
not
what,
put himself forward. But I don't know how they would have found the appropriate experts, because it may be the appropriate experts are not on the National Crime Agency list.
yes, yes. I think so for me as well. I would, if it was me, obviously I know I'm nowhere near as experienced as you, and I'm not as experienced as Paul Hughes. I don't have a high opinion of Cheshire Police, but I accept that they're used to doing investigations, and I'm not. But if it was me, I would think, okay, right, well, let's investigate this quietly. Let's see if there's any basis for this. I find it bizarre that they so quickly went to the press. Um, One would question, I mean, that automatically would question me why they did that, because it just seems so inappropriate. And then the other thing I want to ask you, Stephanie, as well is, I just thought of, um, they seem so preoccupied. And I want you to clarify this because I literally don't know. But they seem so preoccupied with, oh, we need to speak to the families, we need to speak to the families. So was that like a legal or procedural requirement for them once they'd said there was an investigation, firstly?
I'd say yes. For that sort of investigation, you need to have a family liaison strategy. So absolutely, even before doing any press releases, you have to speak to all the families. But what are you actually saying to them? So I don't know if they did the press release and then I don't know. They must have spoken to all of the families. They must have got a family liaison strategy in place first, because you can't do press releases and not speak to the family. That's not right.
Hmm.
So, but when the message came, oh, these are murders, that must have been after Darry Evans did his review, and that's what I don't know, because I was kept completely in the dark after I did my review. That was it. I was completely kept in the dark. I mean, which is fair enough. There was no requirement for the coroner to be involved, but actually the coroner should have been involved,
Hmm.
because there was a question over determining the exact cause of death. So really the coroner should have been involved, but the coroner wasn't, and I wasn't involved either. So yeah, it is good. It is the right thing to do to get a family liaison strategy in place first, have family liaison officers for however many families, and then to ensure that the same message is given at the same time. Because I used to work quite closely with the family liaison officers, especially when we investigated the Bosley explosion in Cheshire. So, and it's you have to get the right communication style. Coroner's officer is going to say this to families, family liaison officer is going to say this, and you don't want to be saying the same thing or giving mixed messages. So that's something that I imagine was discussed very early on. But it is concerning that they, at some stage, then told the families that, your baby was murdered,
Hmm.
on the back of the opinion of Darry Evans.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so we'll move on to questions from viewers now. I mean, I could probably ask you many more questions about Operation Hummingbird, but we'll try and answer some questions from viewers.
Okay.
I just personally think that it should never have been in the press. I mean, I cannot see any possible justification for within 3 days going from we're not going to investigate to, oh yeah, we'll put this in the Guardian. And perhaps if that hadn't happened, again, this is another fork in the road where it could have been handled differently, and perhaps that would have made a difference. But once they committed themselves to say, right, we're doing an investigation, then they contacted the families. I think there was, I don't know, this is just me surmising, but it's almost like they felt we have to do something now. And they thought they had the information to be able to do that. So then they decided, right, we'll just go down this path. And it's just a series of events that could have been avoided, sadly.
Yeah, I agree.
So a very interesting and illustrative discussion with Stephanie there, who always has a lot of important things to say, very insightful, very knowledgeable in her field. I've interviewed Stephanie 3 times on this channel, so you can check out all the full-length videos there. Well, it looks to be over 6 hours, if you add everything up, about 6 hours, 20 minutes of video and audio that I've recorded with her. I'm sure I'll have her back again in the future. Of course, her review was kind of instrumental in this case, so I think she feels strongly that now she understands that this is a miscarriage of justice, she must speak out. So I'm sure she will continue to do that in the future. I also discussed the Silver Killer case with her. There was a documentary on ITV related to that. That's a series of cases in Wilmslow that Stephanie believes were murder cases and that have been deemed by the Cheshire Constabulary to be murder-suicides involving a couple that died. And I mean, I don't know half as much as Stephanie about those cases. Not half as much, not 1% as much probably. But I have read up on them, and she did provide me with some background information, and it certainly seems very unlikely to me that they were murder-suicides, and they do have the hallmarks of being murders. With that being said, I'll have another video for you tomorrow in which I go over some more important information about the Lucy Letby case. Thank you for watching this one.